The Billionaire in Room 808 Part 5. Chapter 16 Breaking Point. They didn't dock at a pier so much as brush against a memory. A low, water-worn door opened in a palazzo that looked abandoned from the canal, shuttered, silent, its paint peeled to the bone. Luca rapped once, twice, a rhythm more like a name than a knock. The bolt lifted without a face appearing. They slipped inside and the door fell shut behind them, the fog cut off like a curtain. The entry smelled of old paper and salt. A narrow stair climbed to a second floor where the rooms were small and high-ceilinged, the kind of Venetian apartment you only noticed if you were meant to. A faded fresco drifted over the sitting room like a dream half scrubbed away, angels with missing eyes, a sky that had learned to keep its colors to itself. The windows were latched, the glass looked out on nothing but vapor and the occasional brush of a lantern sliding past on black water. Luca set the small boat key on a tray, loosened his cuff with one hand, and paused. The stillness around him wasn't deliberate anymore. It was wait. Sit, Layla said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. She was still breathing hard from the run, a thin sheen of mist on her skin, hair damp against her neck. Please. He didn't argue. He sank into a chair whose velvet had given up pretending to be new. In the light that managed to seep through the fog, his face looked carved in shadow. He was composed, but the edges had dulled, the kind of exhaustion that arrives after you've kept the roof from caving in and finally admit the ceiling exists. She crossed to him. Where does it hurt? A faint lift of his mouth. Nowhere. Luca. His gaze flicked to hers. The answer altered. Left side, he conceded after a beat. Old damage. The chase didn't help. She eased his jacket off his shoulders, carefully, as if unwrapping a secret, and found the simple white shirt beneath warm to the touch. He winced once when she lifted his arm. Not much. Enough. In a cabinet by a narrow bed, she found an old tin, bandages, cooling gel packs, a small bottle of something antiseptic that smelled like lemons and a monastery. She pressed a cold pack against his side through the fabric. He closed his eyes, not in pain, but in relief he hadn't planned to allow. Better, he said, the single word exhaled rather than spoken. She worked in silence. The canal below clicked and sighed. Somewhere in the building, a pipe coughed. The world felt suspended, as if Venice held its breath with them. Why here? She asked at last, soft. This place. My father rented it for meetings when he didn't want to be seen, he said, voice even. I kept the door. Sometimes old walls remember how to keep quiet. Layla looked up at him. You look tired. He considered the word as if it belonged to someone else. I am. The admission shifted something between them. Not a door opening. A lock disengaging. She sat on the low table opposite him, knee to knee, the cold pack held steady against his ribs. You said once you don't believe in accidents. I don't. Then tell me what tonight was. A reminder, he said. His eyes stayed on hers. That quiet isn't safety. It's only quiet. She waited, not filling the space. He had taught her how to let silence work. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped. I thought I could keep you at the edges of this and still have you near. A slow breath. That was arrogance. The moment you stepped into 808, the line disappeared. Her throat tightened. I chose to be there. And I chose to let you stay, he said. That's the part I'm not supposed to admit. His hand came up, not to touch her, but to cover his eyes for a moment, as if the light itself asked for too much. It wasn't theatrical. It was human. When he lowered it, a vein of rawness threaded his calm. "I knew you were a risk the second you smiled at me like you weren't afraid," he murmured. "I knew you were a question I wouldn't be able to ignore. And I still didn't send you away." Layla held the ice where he needed it, steady. "I don't want you to send me away." Something passed through his expression at that. Not relief. Not victory. Recognition, perhaps, the kind that hurts a little, because it's true. He leaned back, eyes on the ceiling fresco with its patient angels. "Everything I've held close has been taken. Piece by piece. Sometimes by force. Sometimes by choice. Sometimes by my own hand because keeping it meant losing more." His jaw tightened, loosened. "I told myself I was done wanting anything that needed protecting. Then you walked in and knocked that lie over like it weighed nothing." The words landed in her chest and settled there. He wasn't pleading. He wasn't making promises. He was cataloguing facts he'd avoided writing down. "Look at me," she said gently. He did. "This isn't a fantasy," she said, echoing the canal fog, Venice, the chase. "I know that. I know what I'm standing in. And I'm still standing." He studied her, eyes dark and lucid. "You could leave. I would make it easy." The pause was deliberate, nothing about it sounded easy. "I could put you on a plane before the bells ring dawn. A new passport. A new hotel. By noon you'd be reviewing towels and rooftop pools again. And how long before a box lands on that doorstep with a picture of me holding a coffee cup?" She didn't soften the line. "Whatever this is, I've already stepped into it. Running won't make me smaller." He looked away then, out into the fog that pressed its cheek to the glass. "I didn't want to be the reason your life changes shape." "It already has," she said. "You're not the reason. You're the truth." They sat with that. The cold pack had warmed under her palm. She traded it for a fresh one, pressed it against him again. He didn't flinch. "Bianca," he said suddenly, the name a weight placed gently on the table between them. He hadn't spoken it to her before. It filled the room without echo. She thought the world could be fixed if you cracked it open and held it to the light long enough. She wasn't wrong about the light. A breath. She was wrong about time. Layla's chest ached. She didn't ask what the end looked like. The story lived in his eyes, not his words. "I'm not her," she said softly. "I know," he replied, just as soft. "That's why I can say this out loud." He scrubbed a hand over his face once, as if resetting a mask he wasn't wearing. When he looked at her again, the veneer had thinned. "I don't trust easily. That isn't a virtue. It's damage. But when I woke on that train and the door was opening, the first calculation my mind made wasn't about the intruder. It was about the bed." His mouth tightened. "Whether you were still in it." Layla didn't speak. The city held still with her. "I don't want to lose you," he said. It wasn't a declaration. It was a fault line. She set the cold pack aside and took his hand, the one he hadn't offered, the one that held the weight of rooms with maps and names and ledgers. His fingers closed around hers with slow certainty, like a man who had learned to test the existence of good things before believing in them. "I'm not leaving," she said. "Not because I'm trapped. Because I'm choosing this. You." He watched her for a long moment, as if waiting for his own pulse to betray him. It didn't. Something in him released by a degree she could feel, like a knot coming loose in deep water. Then stay here tonight, he said. Sleep. I'll take the chair. You'll take the bed, she corrected. You're the one pretending you're not in pain. A flicker of that rare, almost smile. Stubborn. So I've been told. He let her help him to the narrow bed. The sheet was cool, the pillow smelled faintly of ink and cedar. He lay on his back, careful with his left side, eyes tracking her as she drew the curtain a fraction to dim the window, then turned off the lamp and took the chair by the bed. The fog made the darkness soft. Layla, he said in the near black. Yes. Thank you. For what? For not asking me to be someone I'm not. She found his hand in the dark and threaded her fingers through his again. I didn't come for a fairy tale. I know, he said, and his voice finally eased. That's why this might live. The city breathed. Water ticked the ancient stones. Somewhere far off, a bell tested the hour and gave up halfway through. His grip loosened as sleep took him in quiet fits and starts, each one longer than the last. When at last his breathing settled, she stayed where she was, a sentinel in a room that remembered how to keep secrets. Outside, a blurred lantern drifted past on the canal, casting a roomy gold across the ceiling's faded angels. For a moment their missing eyes looked whole again. Layla watched the light fade and felt something simple and absolute land inside her. She wasn't orbiting Luca anymore. She was inside the same gravity. And she wasn't afraid. Chapter 17, The Real Plan. The folder was heavy for its size. Layla sat on the edge of the low velvet settee in Bianca's room, the folder resting in her lap like a sealed confession. The air smelled faintly of rose water and ink, a scent so delicate it hurt. Luca stood at the window. He hadn't spoken in minutes. He didn't rush her. She unfastened the metal clasp slowly. Inside were photographs, reports, transcripts, documents yellowed at the edges, stamped with foreign insignias and dates that danced back years. Some were surveillance shots. Others were financial records, each entry circled in red. Names she didn't recognize at first. Then a few she did. One page caught her breath: Moretti Holdings International, the parent company of at least 6 global subsidiaries. All fakeids. All linked back to shell companies that circled each other in endless loops. She looked up. This is your family's empire. Luca nodded once, still watching the horizon. It's not an empire, he said. It's a network of extraction. Money. Influence. People. It's built to be untraceable, but Bianca was beginning to map it. Layla's fingers tightened around the papers. She was working with you. He turned toward her, slowly. She was the only one who ever dared to help, he said. She believed if we collected enough proof, we could dismantle it all. Piece by piece. Quietly, methodically. Hand it to the right people, people outside of Italy, outside of Europe, before the rot could bury us both. Layla stared down at the page again. Every number suddenly felt radioactive. Why didn't you go to the press? Or the police? He gave a faint, humorless laugh. Because the press prints what they're told, and the police, his jaw flexed. Let's just say many of them answer to the same name carved into this house. Layla nodded slowly. She didn't need the rest spelled out. The world Luca came from didn't deal in headlines. It dealt in shadows, and secrets that never survived long once they reached daylight. She disappeared right before you went underground, Layla said softly. Was it because of this? Luca walked to the table, lifted one of the photographs, Bianca, candid, her hair tied back, a dossier in her hands, laughing at something just outside the frame. He held it carefully, like a relic. She was about to deliver the final files, he said. Encrypted records from my brother's personal safe. We had them. We just needed a handoff. Layla felt the air thicken. And then. She didn't make it. His voice didn't break. It didn't need to. That quiet finality carried more weight than a scream. He set the photo down. They told me she ran. That she changed her mind. That she was scared. They gave me every lie I might believe. Every convenient story that would keep me quiet. And did you believe it? Layla asked. Luca met her eyes. I wanted to. He turned and crossed the room, stopping in front of a dusty wall mirror. For a long moment, he stared at his reflection. Then he spoke again, lower. But a month later, I received a message she had encrypted, a fail-safe. Sent to a secure terminal. It wasn't much. Just a voice clip and coordinates. But it told me one thing, she had never run. Layla's chest tightened. Your brother. Luca didn't flinch. He saw what we were doing. Bianca was too close. She had too much. She was brave, but she wasn't invisible. Silence pressed in. The sound of the wind outside brushing the old shutters. A distant raven calling from the trees. Luca turned back toward her, no longer haunted, no longer hiding. Adriano killed what I loved, he said. Layla inhaled sharply. Luca raised a hand. Don't. I don't mean it in the way people assume. I don't need revenge. A pause. I need to finish what Bianca started. He sat beside her, the space between them charged. Not romantic. Not fragile. Just real. This is the real reason I disappeared, he said. Not because I was hunted. Not because I was afraid. But because I knew the only way to bring them down, was from the inside. Layla looked at him, really looked. At the man who had handed her the truth, piece by piece, at the risk of everything he'd built in silence. How, she whispered. I've been building a network of my own, Luca said. Former contacts. Analysts. A few allies who owe favors to no flag. Some inside the system, some outside. Quiet. Strategic. I have people watching my brother's moves. Tracking shipments. Mapping accounts. But it's not enough. He reached for the folder again, pulled out the final sheet, a sketch of a safe, floor plans of a villa, notes in margin scribbled in Bianca's handwriting. This is where it ends, he said. Adriano's personal residence. He keeps physical records. Hard copies. Names. Proof. It's a private vault embedded into his study wall, one of the last things Bianca found before. He trailed off. Layla's eyes didn't leave the page. And you're going to break in, she asked. No, he looked at her, calm but sharp. We are. She stared at him. No bodyguards. No agents. Just us. Luca nodded. You've already crossed the threshold. They've seen your face. Sent you a warning. That makes you a target, or a threat. But it also means they won't expect you to walk straight into their stronghold. Layla blinked. You want me to help you, steal from your brother? Not steal, Luca said. Expose. There's a difference. The words settled between them. She could walk away. Go home. Return to silence. Let someone else carry this weight. But she knew, in that still, crystalline way you know the difference between truth and fiction, that she wouldn't. Because the moment Bianca's voice had been silenced, this story had become unfinished. And now, they were the only ones left to finish it. Layla met his eyes. Then let's start planning. Luca didn't smile. But something in his posture shifted, like an anchor finally catching on rock. Chapter 18 Inside the Lion's Den. The car ride to Adriano's estate felt like a rehearsal for a lie that could kill. Layla stared out the tinted window, her fingers resting on the satin folds of her dress. It was a deep emerald green, a color chosen with precision, designed to evoke wealth, elegance, confidence. Not too loud. Not forgettable. Next to her, Luca looked every bit the prodigal heir. Tailored charcoal suit. Open collar. A cufflink glinting with the family crest, worn not out of pride, but as armor. His expression was unreadable, carved in absolute calm. But Layla could feel it, the tension beneath his skin, the current in his silence. He was going back to the house that had made him. And unmade him. And they both knew, they wouldn't get a second chance if they misstepped. The gates loomed ahead, wrought iron and gilded, flanked by statues of lions whose eyes seemed to watch. The estate beyond was sprawling, Tuscan stone washed golden with age, surrounded by manicured hedges and black lacquered cars. The kind of place built not just for wealth, but for legacy. A man in an earpiece stepped forward. He didn't even knock, he recognized Luca instantly. Mr. Moretti, the guard said, and bowed slightly. Your brother is expecting you. Layla held her breath. Luca's voice was low. Unshaken. Of course he is. Inside, the mansion was opulent in a way that rejected warmth, dark wood, towering ceilings, chandeliers that glowed like interrogation lamps. Servants moved silently, eyes lowered. Everything was in place, too in place. The walls felt staged. The silence was trained. Adriano waited in the drawing room. He looked like Luca, but older. Sharper. A man whose smile could cut. He wore a dark blue suit, no tie, gold watch just visible beneath his sleeve. He stood when they entered, but didn't approach. Little brother, he said. Look at you. Still alive. Luca didn't flinch. Alive. Well. And on time. And this, Adriano turned his eyes to Layla, must be the reason for your return. Layla smiled, the way socialites smile when they've just stepped off a yacht. Layla Fontaine, she said smoothly, offering her hand. And you must be Adriano. Luca talks about you constantly. A lie, dipped in champagne. Adriano took her hand but didn't kiss it. His gaze lingered, too long, as if trying to measure her weight with his eyes. I doubt that, he said. Luca's hand settled gently on the small of her back, not affection. Warning. Stay close. Let's not play games, Adriano continued, gesturing to the lounge. You're here because you need something. But I won't ruin the evening by guessing what. For now, let's enjoy the illusion of brotherly love. He motioned for drinks. Dinner was staged in the glass solarium, overlooking the vineyard. Too many candles. Too much silver. Adriano talked like a man who wanted to be overheard, stories about foreign ventures, partners whose names Layla recognized from the documents in the folder Bianca left behind. Every word felt like a veiled threat. Every sip of wine was a challenge. Luca played his part flawlessly. He laughed at the right moments, complimented the estate's wines, spoke about a fabricated engagement, a new chapter, a desire to restore family ties. Layla kept her gaze soft, her smile sharper. She let Adriano underestimate her. He did. When dinner ended, Adriano stood. "Stay the night," he said, like it wasn't a command. "The guest suite in the north wing is ready. I'm sure you'll enjoy it." Luca smiled, a predator's smile behind polished teeth. "We'd be honored." But Layla saw it. The flicker. The glance. The truth behind the cordiality. Adriano didn't believe them. Not entirely. But he was curious. Curious enough to let them stay. The guest suite was palatial, but sterile. A bedroom with cathedral ceilings, gold-framed mirrors, a sitting room with a fireplace too pristine to have ever been lit. Luca closed the door. Waited. Then swept the room twice, checking vents, shelves, the back of the headboard. Finally, he reached into the lining of his jacket and pulled out a small black device. He pressed it against the mirror. A blue light pulsed. Clear. He turned to her, face tight. "There are 3 surveillance points in the hallway. None in this room. He's watching, but not everything." Layla swallowed. "Then now's the time." He retrieved a small black pouch from the lining of his suitcase, soft leather, barely larger than a wallet. Inside, tools. Not weapons. Not wires. Tools of precision. A USB drive. A device that looked like a lipstick tube but clicked open into a miniature scanner. A credit card that split into thin sheets of metal. He unfolded a blueprint from his inner jacket pocket and spread it across the desk. Adriano's private study was in the east wing. The vault was hidden behind a false wall, fingerprint protected, analog keyed. Old world tech disguised as art. "I'll need 10 minutes alone in his study," Luca said. "He won't give them freely." Layla looked up. "So we make him." The opportunity came the next morning. Breakfast on the veranda. Adriano in a robe, sipping espresso, bored. Layla in a silk robe of pale champagne, sun catching in her hair. Luca, perfect as ever, reading the business section aloud like nothing had changed. Then Layla asked the question. "Adriano," she said, tilting her head just enough, "where is your art collection?" Luca said, "You have a piece by Firelight in your study. I'd love to see it." Adriano blinked, amused. Flattered. "It's not open to guests," he said. "But I suppose we can make an exception." He rose. "Come." Layla stood too. Luca's hand brushed hers once, quickly. "Wait. I'll join you in a moment," he said. "I need to call Geneva." Adriano gave a sharp nod, as if already losing interest. "Don't be long." He walked Layla out, into the east wing, disappearing with her around the hall. Luca moved. He slipped into the corridor, hugged the wall, bypassed the camera blind spots he had memorized the night before. Reached the study. Opened the door with a small, silent tool. Inside, marble floors, high shelves, and a wall of paintings. The vault was behind a framed oil landscape. Luca lifted it, scanned his fingerprint, then inserted a slim magnetic key into the base of the frame. The panel slid back. Time ticking. He scanned the files. Pulled 3. Inserted the USB into the terminal beneath the shelf. Downloading. Every second was a stone in his chest. Then. Done. He returned the files, reset the frame, wiped the surfaces. He was back in the hallway before Adriano and Layla had finished admiring the forged Zephyr. That night, back in their suite, Luca placed the USB in Layla's palm. "Everything we need is here," he said. "Names. Codes. Ledgers. It's all real." Layla closed her fingers around it. She felt as if she were holding something radioactive. "Now what?" she whispered. Luca's voice was low, even. "Now we bring it all to light." Chapter 19 The Evidence. They didn't leave Adriano's estate immediately. That would have drawn suspicion. Instead, they stayed one more night. Layla never asked how Luca could sleep, knowing what now sat inside his jacket pocket, a flash drive capable of detonating decades of empire with one click. The kind of evidence no one was ever supposed to see. The kind people had vanished for even approaching. But he did sleep. And not like a man afraid. More like a man who had finally crossed a threshold he'd been circling for years. They left at dawn. No fanfare. No confrontation. Just quiet goodbyes, a forced embrace between brothers, and Adriano's warning smile like a dagger dressed in velvet. "Be careful in the world, fratellino," he had said. "Sometimes it bites back." To an outsider, it was a farewell between siblings who didn't much care for each other. To Layla, it was clear, Adriano knew something had shifted. He just hadn't decided what. Not yet. Back at the safe house, a modern, soundproofed flat carved into the mountains near Lake Como, Luca wasted no time. He connected the drive to a secure laptop, one that required 3 forms of biometric clearance and a rotating encryption key. Layla stood behind him, arms crossed, as the screen flooded with data, names, accounts, transfers, offshore routes, photographs of handoffs, blueprints of ships, flight manifests tied to front companies. It was dizzying. And all real. Everything Bianca had started. Everything she died for. Layla broke the silence first. This is enough to implicate half the boardrooms in Europe." Luca didn't look up. "And a few in Washington." The cursor blinked, waiting. She leaned closer. "What happens now?" Luca typed something, a long, untraceable path that sent the files to a cloud nobody could find without a dozen digital keys. Then he reached into his bag and retrieved a separate envelope, marked only with a number, D47. Inside was a thin ID badge. It read, Department of Intelligence Liaison, U.S. State Department Provisional Access. Layla blinked. "You said you worked alone." "I do," Luca replied. She picked up the badge. "This is American government." "Not quite," he said. "The State Department lends names to things they don't want visible. But years ago, someone at Langley reached out. They were tracking movement through Swiss banks. Money moving too fast, in patterns too clean. It all pointed back to my family. To Adriano." Layla's eyes widened. "And they recruited you?" "They gave me a choice," Luca said simply. "Run, or help them bring it down." He clicked open a secondary file, this one bearing the seal of the CIA. A list of handlers. Code names. Drop sites. Layla's mouth went dry. "So all this time?" "All this time," Luca nodded, "I wasn't just hiding. I was collecting. Waiting. Building the case from the inside." "And Bianca?" Her voice softened. He stared at the screen for a long moment. Bianca was never supposed to know. But she did. She found fragments. Put the puzzle together faster than I expected. And she asked me for the truth. Layla didn't move. I gave it to her, Luca said. Because I loved her. Because she was brilliant. And brave. And I thought I could protect her. His voice didn't break. But something in him did. Quietly. Invisibly. Like a wire snapping in the dark. She offered to help. Just once. Said she could intercept a package on Adriano's behalf and reroute it to one of our dead drops. We agreed it would be her only involvement. She did everything right. He looked up at Layla. And 2 days later, she vanished. Layla's chest ached. Luca leaned back in his chair, the glow of the laptop casting shadows across his face. I knew then, he said quietly, that I couldn't just disappear. I had to finish what she started. But I had to do it my way. Not with headlines. With silence. She walked around to stand beside him. So, this is the endgame. He shook his head. This is the beginning. Layla frowned. You mean? This drive. He tapped it. It's just the proof. What matters is what happens to the people on it. Every name. Every contract. Every code buried inside. He clicked open one last tab, a transmission window lined with code. At the top, the name, Athena Protocol Phase 2. Layla stared at it. What is that? Luca didn't answer right away. Instead, he opened the secure messaging platform and typed a single word. Unlocked. Then turned to her. It's the final operation, he said. Now they know we're ready to move. Layla felt the air shift. Something larger had awakened, something global. This wasn't just about his family anymore. It was about the entire system that enabled them. You trust them? She asked. The CIA. He gave a cold smile. No. But they need this exposed. And I need it destroyed. For now, we agree on the goal. She stepped back, still absorbing it. So what happens now? He shut the laptop. Now we go silent. We vanish again. While they act. Layla looked at him. And for the first time, she didn't see a fugitive. She saw a strategist. A ghost-turned architect. A man who had buried his grief in code and silence, and finally brought it into the light. That night, as the sun bled over the lake, Layla stood on the balcony and watched the water shimmer gold. Luca joined her quietly. Not touching. Just standing beside her. You okay? He asked. She didn't answer right away. I used to think your world was made of shadows, she said. But now I think it's made of choices. Every one of them brutal. His voice was barely audible. Then stay. And help me make the last ones count. She didn't look at him. Just reached out, fingers brushing his. I'm already in. That's the end of this part, but trust me, the next one is even more thrilling. We drop fresh episodes every day, so don't miss out. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned, you won't want to miss what's coming next.
Thanks for listening to Billionaire Romance Stories, where love meets luxury in the most unexpected places. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. We love hearing your favorite twists and favorite theories. And don't forget to ring that bell, because in this world of yachts, secrets, and luxurious romance, the next story is always one click away.